Afterwards, as they walked back through the garden together, James thought that all the fun and games must be over. He couldn't have been more wrong. The snowman took his hand. I've had, I've had such a good time, James, he told him. This home of yours is full of nice surprises. Would you like to see mine? I haven't got a farm, but I have got a bit of surprise to show you. And at that moment the snowman began to run, slowly at first, but then faster and faster and faster. He had long legs and James had short legs, so with every step James was finding it harder and harder to keep up. But suddenly he didn't have to run anymore because he couldn't. His feet weren't touching the ground. They were going so fast they were taking off. His legs were running through thin air. They were flying. The snowman had his arms around him, and they were flying. James looked down. There was his house with smoke coming out of the chimney. There was the farm. There were the barns. There was his swings. There was that shed. There was his trampoline. But were all getting smaller and smaller. Higher and higher they flew all over the fields and the woods and the river, out of the out over the moor, but above them the moon and the stars below them, a wall of white. James looked around and saw that they weren't alone. There were other snowmen flying along behind, dozens of them, hundreds of them. But none of the others had a boy flying with him. He was the only one, and James liked that. He had never felt more special in his life. James looked ahead. Where are we going? He cried. But the snowman only laughed, his booming jolly laugh. So James wasn't worried. He was enjoying himself too much to be worried. Ahead on the horizon the sky was aglow. As they flew on he could see the glittering lights of a big city with tall towers, wide roads, and a dark river running through them. Over the bridges the cars came and went. James looked up. Stars filled the sky as far as he could see. He loved stars. His dad loved them too. He knew some of their names, and so did James. But he had never been as close to them as this. Out there was a plough and the Big Dipper, and the Milky Way was everywhere. When he looked down again, the brightness of the city was gone. There were no lights to be seen anymore. No houses, no fields, no snowy whiteness. Only a darkness that shone in the moonlight. A darkness that James knew was the darkness of the sea. Down they flew lower and lower over little waves, huge waves, and then over little icebergs, huge icebergs. The snowman was pointing ahead. Look, James, he said. Home, my home. It was a land made entirely of snow. Below them now there were no more trees or fields or rivers or houses, no more glowing lights, no more cars or bright city buildings, just snow. And it was all empty, so beautiful, so quiet. Over white mountains they floated high, and along white valleys they flew lower over the snow. The snowman's arms around James, still holding him tight. Almost there now, the snowman said, I'm not very good at landing, James, I'm afraid. I never really got the hang of it, but don't you worry. There's plenty of snow about, and it's always deep. We'll have a nice soft landing, you'll see. But as they neared the ground, it seemed to James that they were flying over it, faster and faster, not slower and slower. So despite that, the snowman had said, he was beginning to be worried, very worried indeed. But when they did land, although they bumped and bounced and slid along in the snow for quite a while, and rolled over and over in it, they ended up safe and sound, because the snow, as the snowman had said, was softer and the deepest cushion. The snowman was there to help James to his feet. "Here we are, James," he said. "Snowman's land, our home. This is where we all come back to, where we snowmen all belong. We cannot stay long in your world. We have to leave where it's cold, and we aren't alone. Look up there."